From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, let's take a look at the latest headlines. Israeli tanks launch a major operation in central Gaza, killing at least 70 civilians. Gaza's health ministry says that more than 200 Palestinians, including women and children, are severely wounded. A landslide in the East African nation of Ethiopia kills over 140 people. Rescue officials say several hundred remain missing as rainfall hampers search and rescue efforts. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government unveils its first budget after election and announces a boost in spending on job creation, rural development, and national infrastructure. Slovakia receives 2 F-16 fighter jets from the United States in the backdrop of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Slovakia will receive a total of 14 jets from Washington in a deal worth over $1 billion. And Colombian President Gustavo Petro signs a bill banning bullfighting across the country. The ban will be fully implemented by the year 2027 and will turn bullfighting arenas into cultural centers. We begin in the United States. After President Joe Biden's endorsement, Vice President Kamala Harris continues to secure support of Democratic delegates as she prepares to become her party's presidential nominee. Several state delegates from Texas and California met last night to confirm their support for the vice president. Meanwhile, senior Democrats, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, have now endorsed her candidacy. Harris has also smashed fundraising records as her team reportedly raised $81 million within a 24-hour period. Now, in her first remarks since being endorsed by President Biden, Kamala Harris thanked the president and the campaign for its continued support.
And I wanted to say a few words about our president. Joe Biden's legacy of accomplishment over the past 3 years is unmatched in modern history. In one term, he has already, yes, you may clap. In one term, he has already surpassed the legacy of most presidents who have served 2 terms in office.
The vice president then kicked off her campaign and verbally went after Donald Trump, calling him a predator and fraudster.
You know, as many of you know, before I was elected as vice president, before I was elected as United States Senator, I was the elected Attorney General, as I've mentioned, of California, and before that I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
After attacking the Republican Party's presidential candidate, the Democrat shifted her focus to domestic policies, saying her administration would focus on America's middle class, health care, reproductive rights for women, and would work toward a ban on assault weapons.
Together we fight to build a nation where every person has affordable health care. Yes. where every worker is paid fairly, and where every senior can retire with dignity. All of this is to say, building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. We who believe in the sacred freedom to vote, we who are committed to fight to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act, we who believe in the freedom to live safe from gun violence, and that's why we will work to pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban. We who will fight for reproductive freedom, knowing if Trump gets the chance, he will sign a national abortion ban to outlaw abortion in every single state, but we are not going to let that happen.
Signing off, Vice President Harris urged the Democratic Party to stay united and team up for the November election with the goal of defeating Donald Trump.
So in the next 106 days, we have work to do. We have doors to knock on, we have people to talk to, we have phone calls to make, and we have an election to win.
Now, since the Vice President's first remarks, the Democratic Party has received more than 28,000 new volunteers, a rate which is more than 100 times that of the Biden re-election campaign. Enthusiasm and energy are clearly running anew now that Harris is atop the ticket. And staying with Vice President Harris, the Kremlin has accused the Democrat of having unfriendly rhetoric toward Russia. Vladimir Putin's office also claimed that Vice President Harris had made no contributions to U.S.-Russia relations during the Biden presidency. Vice President Harris says she will continue with President Biden's foreign policies regarding Russia if she's re-elected in November. This makes clear that a Harris administration would offer strong support to Ukraine's war efforts against Russia. Meanwhile, Harris said that she would make some changes to President Biden's Middle East policy. Now, this comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits the United States. In fact, he'll deliver a joint address to Congress on the 24th of July. Harris, along with several Democrats, have confirmed that they will not be attending the congressional address. However, the vice president has confirmed a private meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House after his address on Capitol Hill. Now, according to reports, the presumptive presidential nominee is likely to assure Netanyahu of more American support for Israel's security, but will also push for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. In fact, she's been tougher on Israel for ignoring humanitarian damage in Gaza. However, Prime Minister Netanyahu says he is optimistic of working with the United States regardless of who sits in the White House. Closer to home, Vice President Harris is receiving a lot of praise and support. In fact, Mexico's first woman president, Claudia Sheinbaum, has come out in complete support of the Democrat.
There's now the possibility that another woman run for the Democratic Party. Of course, as a woman, I like to see other women running, but it will be the U.S. people who will decide, and we will have a good relationship with the elected person. President Biden has had a good relationship with Mexico.
America's foreign policy remains a vital concern for voters, and with the election just 4 months away, all eyes will be on Vice President Harris as she promises to continue President Biden's foreign policies. And staying in Washington, on Capitol Hill, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheeto has accepted that her agency failed to protect the former president. This after she was grilled by a congressional committee over the shocking security lapses at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania rally. Cheeto revealed that the Secret Service agents were alerted about a suspicious person during the rally not just once, but between 2 to 5 times. Still, the federal agency did nothing to identify the threat and stop him from firing shots at the Republican presidential nominee. Here's our latest story that takes you inside the tense and heated exchange between lawmakers and the Secret Service director.
It's been over a week since Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt at a Pennsylvania rally. a 20-year-old gunman came close to fatally shooting the former US president. Trump escaped with injuries to his right ear as he was swarmed by Secret Service agents. A bloody Trump then pumped his fist in the air as the Secret Service agents rushed him off stage. That day, the US Secret Service, which is responsible for protecting former and current presidents, had no clear answers about the shocking security lapse. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle said that she was working to understand what happened and how it happened. But now she has admitted to the US Congress that the federal agency failed to protect one of the nation's biggest politicians.
The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again.
While being grilled by a bipartisan House committee, Cheatle also made a bombshell revelation by saying that the Secret Service was warned about a suspicious person during the rally, not just once, but 2 to 5 times.
How many times was the Secret Service alerted about a suspicious person at the July 13th campaign event prior to the first shot being shot?
I don't have an exact number to share with you today, but from what I've been able to discern, somewhere between 2 and 5 times there was some sort of communication about a suspicious individual.
To the Secret Service specifically?
Mm-hmm.
During the congressional hearing, lawmakers from both the Republican and Democratic parties appeared to be frustrated as Cheatle dodged several questions and emphasized that she cannot comment on ongoing investigations.
While President Trump has been allowed to take the stage, people see Crooks laying on his stomach in a sniper position on the roof, and they're yelling he has a gun, and they are trying to alert law enforcement and Secret Service. Why was Crooks not shot by the snipers? Why was he allowed to be there?
As soon as the individual was identified as a threat, they were...
No. What do you consider to be a threat? A man with a gun laying in a sniper position, a man that had a backpack, a man that had a bicycle, a man that had a rangefinder. At what point is he determined a threat?
An individual with a backpack is not a threat. An individual with a rangefinder is not a threat.
Cheatle confirmed that the FBI informed the Secret Service about a gunman using a drone in the area. He had also brought a rangefinder to measure the distance between Trump and his rifle. However, Cheatle did not provide answers on how the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, climbed the roof of a building adjacent to Trump's rally, and how nobody from the Secret Service was positioned there to stop him. Notably, multiple witnesses reported seeing a man with a rifle on the rooftop minutes before the shots were fired at the former president.
Several hours before
Monday's hearing was just the first of several congressional efforts to examine how and why the Secret Service failed to identify the shooter beforehand. The director of the FBI is conducting his own probe and will appear before the House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday.
And now to one of the most contentious issues of the presidential election, the U.S. southern border. Thousands of migrants are heading to the U.S.-Mexico border before the November elections due to concerns that former President Donald Trump might permanently close it. The caravan of asylum seekers departed from Mexico's southern border and began traveling north after President Joe Biden declared that he would not seek re-election on Sunday. The migrants say they are afraid that if Donald Trump returns to the White House, he could carry out the largest deportation in American history, a claim the Republican has repeatedly made at election rallies. Our next report has all the details.
The sun was just beginning to rise over Ciudad Hidalgo, casting a soft golden glow over the bustling crowd. thousands of people from around a dozen countries were gathering, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and anxiety. They were embarking on an arduous journey spanning thousands of kilometers to the US border, driven by dreams of a better life and the looming specter of political change. They believed a Donald Trump victory would end the hope of asylum seekers to enter the US legally, which the Biden administration had set up to control the flow of migrants.
It is a very worrying situation that we are going through because we need to be there. We are worried that Donald Trump will discriminate against us, that he will close the border, and that he will eliminate CBP-1. We are opting for CBP-1, and we are here at the shelter waiting for the appointment. We are very worried here at the shelter.
The whispers were everywhere. What will happen if Trump wins the upcoming election? The borders might slam shut, trapping everyone in limbo. With a determined glint in their eyes, migrants said they were not the invaders Trump had painted them to be. They were farmers, construction workers, teachers, all seeking safety and opportunity in a land they believed to be the beacon of hope.
We all come for a dream, and we leave families at home. We come to try to find a way to fight for them.
It's a lie. We have never robbed anyone. We just want to improve ourselves.
The caravan set off. As they trudged along the dusty roads of Mexico, the group faced myriad challenges. The path had become increasingly treacherous, with Mexican authorities tightening controls in an effort to ease the pressure on the US-Mexico border. Former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador had been vocal about protecting migrants from the risky journey north. But for many, the risks of staying were far greater.
The bad thing about Trump's first term in office was that he was very aggressive with the borders and with Mexico, but especially on the border. He said to build more walls, that we have a security problem, that a lot of drugs cross here, and that he wanted to return the industry back to the United States, especially with his speech, Make America Great Again.
Make America great again.
While most of them relied heavily on the CBP-1 app from US Customs and Border Protection, which allowed them to make appointments at border crossings, migrants explained this system was far from perfect. In June 2024 alone, around 41,800 appointments were made through the app, but more than double that number crossed illegally, unable to wait for their turn. The International Rescue Committee had warned of the dangers migrants face, particularly women and children who are vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. But despite the risks, the caravan pressed on, driven by an unyielding desire for a better life.
Seeing it like this lowers our hope because with Joe Biden, we had guaranteed passage up there.
We are people trying to find and support our family.
With elections almost 4 months away, all eyes are now on Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. The fate of thousands of migrants lies in their hands, and as they continue their trek through the heart of Mexico, each mile brought them closer to the uncertain promise of a new beginning. Their hopes pinned on the chance that the door to their dreams would not close before they arrived.
And finally, in South America, Brazilian President Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva has urged his Venezuelan counterpart Nicolas Maduro to respect the results of the upcoming elections, saying he was scared of Maduro's warnings of a bloodbath if he lost the vote.
I got frightened with Maduro's statement saying there will be a bloodbath if he loses. Whoever loses the election takes a vote bath, not a bloodbath. Maduro needs to learn that when you win, you stay. When you lose, you leave. You leave and you get ready for another election. I'm hoping that's what happens.
Venezuela will vote to elect their next president on Sunday, July 28th. And after 11 years in power, Maduro is trailing in opinion polls to his 74-year-old opponent and retired diplomat Edmundo Gonzalez. The 61-year-old authoritarian leader and his allies have stepped up the predictions of post-election violence. In fact, in recent weeks, he's warned Venezuelans, saying they must choose between war and peace. Maduro added, quote, "If you don't want Venezuela to fall into a bloodbath, into fratricidal civil war due to the fascists, let's ensure the greatest success, the greatest victory in the electoral history of our people," end quote. Now, Lula says Maduro has to respect the democratic process and that Brazil will send 2 members of its Electoral Justice Service to Venezuela to observe the election.
I've already spoken to Maduro twice by telephone, and Maduro knows that the only chance of Venezuela returning to normality is to have an election process that is respected by everyone. That's why Brazil is sending 2 people from the electoral justice system, Ambassador Celso Amorim to Venezuela.
Maduro was narrowly elected in 2013 after the death of his predecessor and mentor Hugo Chavez. In 2018, the Venezuelan president won re-election that his adversaries deemed was not free and fair. Maduro's re-election was widely considered a sham, even by the United States, as major opposition parties and their candidates were banned from contesting the polls. The alleged tactics to disrupt the election continue in Venezuela as dozens of people linked to the Gonzalez campaign have been arrested already this year. This includes the head of security for the opposition leader, who was just detained for 48 hours just last week. Still, Gonzalez says he will respect the verdict of Venezuelans and trust the election results.
I do not want to place myself in crazy scenarios. Here we are going to have an electoral process. There will be some results. We trust that the results will be respected and that from that moment the process of reconstruction and reinstitutionalization of the country will begin. To the international community, we ask you to accompany us closely in this process because it will be decisive in reducing migration and making Venezuela a reliable partner.
Now, it is up to the voters of Venezuela whether they want to re-elect Nicolas Maduro for the 3rd time or make a change amid his deadly and violent threats. That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on First.